Welcome to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. Being visible as a soul-led business owner isn't just about the practical strategies, marketing tips, and tech systems. It's also about the internal systems, the safety of your nervous system, the somatic connection, and the embodiment of being a badass CEO that will support you in all of the ups and downs of entrepreneurship. And I'm here to share all of that with you on this show. I'm your host, Shawnee Arsenault, a registered nurse turned visibility coach and business mentor for heart-centered coaches and healers. I created a six-figure coaching practice in my first year of business and scaled to multiple six figures my second year, all in the middle of getting pregnant with my first baby and becoming a new mama. If I can do this entrepreneurship thing, I know you can too. If you're ready to learn how to be a CEO in a way that feels aligned with your heart, become a lighthouse for the people that you're meant to serve, feel free to authentically express yourself and be a magnet for success, and grow your coaching business in a way that is sustainable and fulfilling, I can't wait to be in your ear along for the ride. All right, welcome back to the Vibrant Visibility Podcast. I've got a little bit of a personal episode for you guys today. I'm sharing some personal things. These are my 5 most vulnerable moments that I've had in business. Not just the stuff that makes it to your social media feed. I'm talking about the actual decisions that like decisions that made my stomach drop. I'm talking about seasons that cracked me open, the times I didn't feel 100% sure and showed up anyways. Like these are the moments that really shaped me in ways that like no course or coach ever could. And my hope is that in hearing them, in sharing them here, you'll feel a little less alone in your own kind of like messy middle. I don't think that many people in the online space, especially if you're an entrepreneur who owns a business, I don't think many people really share the super vulnerable, the super messy side of things. I'm a recovering perfectionist, and I know many of my clients are. I know many of you in my audience are. And it can be really difficult to show more of those like messy, like weaknesses, those vulnerabilities so openly. So I hope that this is just a nice breath of fresh air for you guys. So I have 5. I have 5 vulnerable moments that I'm going to share. The first one being leaving my job, leaving my full-time nursing job. Leaving my nursing job was one of the scariest, most vulnerable, testy things that I have ever done. And I honestly didn't feel 100% secure in that decision. I kept going back and forth. I spent several hours on coaching calls week after week after week with my mentor at the time, being supported around making the decision to leave. And I originally had the goal to leave my job by my birthday that year, that first like full year that I was in my business. I had started really started to go all in that January, the beginning of that year, 2022. I started my business in 2021, but 2022 is whenever I was like, okay, I want this to be my full-time gig. And I had that goal at the beginning of the year in 2022 to have enough success that would allow me to leave my full-time nursing job by my birthday, which is May. Actually, when this episode is going live, it's the day after my birthday. So I had that goal. I was getting closer and closer to my birthday that year, and I was nowhere near being able to leave my job. I had only really had like a couple of paying clients, and I wasn't really seeing any consistency. I wasn't seeing a lot of external validation that like, yeah, you got this, like you can make money doing this. And so it was really, really scary whenever I was approaching that goal date and I didn't feel nearly close enough to be able to say, I can confidently leave my job and know that I'm going to be okay. So I was on a coaching call with my mentor and I was like, I'm freaking out. I'm freaking out. I had this goal to leave my job by my birthday and I'm nowhere near that. And she was like, why don't we just throw that goal out the window for right now? And whenever your birthday comes, we are going to celebrate exactly where you are and know that you're exactly where you need to be in order to leave your job at the moment it feels right. And her giving me that permission, her just allowing me to release that specific goal and work on my business in a way that didn't put so much pressure on me, it was literally exactly what I needed because about a month after my birthday, I had signed like 4 or 5 paying clients all at once. I had my first 14K month, and it was exactly the energy that I needed to be shifting into in order to do the things that I needed to do and be the person that I needed to be to feel safe and secure leaving my job. So I didn't feel 100% sure in that decision, but I also decided that feeling less than 100% sure was okay, right? It was enough for me to trust. I was about 75% sure. And I knew that people wouldn't get it. I knew, especially like family and people that knew me from before I became a business owner. I spent so much time being supported around this too, around having people misunderstand me or not totally get it. And a shout out to my first coach, Laura. Love you so much for holding me in that season. I had to really lean in hard on the support of her, the support of my husband. I went to my husband. I remember telling him that I was going to be leaving my job, and he was just like, you do what you need to do, right? Like, let's go all in on this. This is the moment, this is the opportunity, and we're going to take it and we'll figure it out. What made it even scarier was that I had to really lean on myself. I had to trust my own ability to make this happen. I had to trust in the confidence that I had to figure it out and risk messing it up along the way or making mistakes. And I had to let go of control, which felt really hard for me. My nursing job gave me a steady paycheck. I never had to worry about finding work as a nurse. And so there was this false sense of safety that I thought I had by staying in it as long as I did. And yet my soul was screaming. It was screaming for something different. And it was something that I eventually just could not ignore. I couldn't get past it. And so the biggest lesson I think I learned from this decision, from not being 100% sure, from leaving my full-time job and deciding to pursue something that is not even in the same realm, the biggest lesson for me was to trust my decision making and to trust that these decisions are presenting themselves to me for a reason. There's like some cosmic spiritual reason that this is happening, and not to judge myself for wanting to walk away from something that I once thought I'd never leave. And then on top of that too, like not only did I learn to really trust my decisions, but also to know that I can always change my mind. I did a podcast episode recently about always reserving the right to change your mind and shift course. And I know I always have the option to do that. I always have the option to do that. I went back to nursing this year only as like a per diem. Like I only pick up like, 1 or 2 shifts a month. There's no requirement. It's not a full-time thing, but I missed it. I missed it. And this is the season where I'm really trying to like diversify my income streams. And nursing is my most established income stream. So when I started to realize that I had more space to be able to diversify my income streams, I was like, I actually do kind of want to go back to nursing. I'm a radiation oncology nurse, and that's a very, very highly specialized field in nursing. And so this year, I decided to take a per diem job at a radiation oncology clinic. And I am having so much fun doing that. Like I said, I only work like a couple shifts a month here and there, sometimes more, just depending on what I'm willing to pick up and depending on like when the nurses that are working there take vacation and days off and stuff like that. But it is so much fun. And I forgot how exciting it was to just be really good at something and not have to think. Like nursing is something I don't have to think about. It's something that is very instinctual, and it actually is a nice breath of fresh air to dive back into that world after 3 years of not doing anything clinical and have a lot of fun doing it. And the hospital that I ended up getting hired at, I love the people there. The people there are so fun. They're so welcoming. They're so warm. It's a well-oiled machine. So I'm not like walking into chaos. And for this season, it is giving me so much life to be able to do some work outside of the house, work that I don't have to think about, work that I don't have to be super creative with. Like it's just second nature to me. And so leaving my full-time job a few years ago really opened up my ability to decide what season am I in right now? Am I in a season where I don't feel in alignment with working a clinical job? Am I in a season where I really want to get out of the house and upkeep those skills? So, trusting my decisions, that was probably the biggest lesson that I learned from leaving my job. Vulnerable moment number two in my business. Absolutely building my business while I was pregnant with my son. Navigating my first pregnancy while trying to build a business was a lot. It was a lot. I didn't feel totally 100% ready to be a mom. At the same time, I was like, I have to make this work. I have to make this business work if I'm going to feel prepared when this baby comes. I essentially I had a 9 month ticking time bomb. That's what it felt like. It pushed me into extreme mastery mode. I had to figure out how to connect more consistently. I mean, I was connecting pretty consistently, but I was also leaning on other avenues to bring leads to me, and that wasn't going to be sustainable. So I had to figure out how to connect consistently, how to book sales calls, how to market in a way that felt good and actually filled my practice, right? And I did. And I waitlisted people who were wanting to work with me, and I didn't want to start them before I had my baby. Whenever it got closer to the time that I was going to have him, I waitlisted people and had people either pay or put deposits down so that they could work with me whenever I came back from maternity leave, right? Like, I had people ready and I had a practice full for whenever I came back. However, that didn't mean that it was easy. The year after becoming a mom, like after I had him, I came back from maternity leave and I jumped back into my business. I was dealing with a lot. Like, I was dealing with postpartum depression. I was dealing with, I was holding PTSD from a traumatic birth experience with preeclampsia and having my son 5 weeks early and having him be in the NICU. Like, I was still, well, yeah, even just like recalling that on this very like surface level capacity right now is bringing up a somatic response in me because it's still like I think about it and it's a lot. I was holding a lot at the time, and I was still showing up in my business through all of it. And I don't think I would have ever been able to do that, be able to navigate the postpartum depression, the PTSD from the traumatic birth, the feeling of guilt that I couldn't be with my son for those first 10 days of his life. I had to, oh, yeah, I'm getting emotional just talking about it, so I'm going to stop. But my biggest lesson there was asking for fucking help, right? Like, I was being thrown so many different things in my life at the time. I was like going through an identity shift. I was at the same time, I was also releasing income streams, and I'll talk about that later. That's another moment that I'm going to talk about. And then I was also navigating new motherhood with very little help. My husband and I, we live 2,500 miles away from both of our families. And so up here in the Pacific Northwest, it's just me and him, and we have a nanny, and that is literally it. And so asking for help, hiring a nanny for full-time hours, being held in 4 different support spaces at the time. I was seeing a somatic therapist. I had my one-on-one business mentor. I had a group coaching space with other entrepreneurial moms who got it. They get the struggle. I was working with a human design coach at the time to really work on deconditioning myself from all of the stupid shit that's been programmed in my head so I don't pass it on to my son. I really wanted to be proactive about that before I had him. So from the outside looking in, that may have seemed like overkill. And I've talked about this before. I've done a whole podcast episode on being in multiple containers at once. But for me, it was what kept things moving forward. It's what helped me stay afloat. As a business owner, as a new mom. And so that time period was so important for my own growth as a business owner, for my own growth as a human being, is to really start leaning into asking for help. I am not great at it. I'm not great at asking for help. I am much better at it now than I was before, but I still that conditioning, that people pleasing tendency, that worry that I'm going to be a burden on somebody is really heavy still. And it's something I work on in therapy quite often. And I'm constantly being encouraged by my husband, by my therapist, by my coach to reach out and ask and just name that I need help with certain things. That one was an emotional one. So, for all of you mamas out there who are also trying to run a business at the same time, I just want you to know that you're not alone in that struggle. It is fucking hard. It's hard to build a business and be a mom, especially whenever your kids are little. You're not alone. Moment number 3. This one is a little bit tender as well. Oof. It's so weird. Like, I knew I was gonna have a somatic response as I was doing this episode. But yeah, I'm feeling it. So if I pause, if you hear me pause for a little bit, I'm just honoring the reaction that is coming up in my body as I talk about these super vulnerable business lessons. So moment number 3 is difficult client experiences. That same year that I got pregnant with my son, that I had my son that year after, I had a string of very difficult client experiences. Yeah, this one's tender. I try not to cry. I've had some really hard client experiences. I've had a client that I was supposed to work with for a year, and then she stopped 6 months in and then completely ghosted me. I've had clients who didn't really get the results they wanted and then came after me for it. I've had trolls leave hateful comments on my social media. And I've worked with clients who, in hindsight, weren't aligned, and it left me like constantly leaning on my own support systems, my own coach to hold me through that. I used to believe that once I gained momentum in my business, once I created a certain amount of success, things would get easier. But what I've realized is the more success you have, the harder it does get because the problems don't go away, right? They just evolve into new, different types of problems. And so my biggest lesson here was learning to release the need to please, release the need to fix, to be the savior, to be the one who comes in and rescues. I have a major savior complex. Coming with it comes with the territory of being a nurse and being a nurturer. But I really had to learn that it's not my job to create results for my clients, to create the experience that they want. It's my job to hold powerful space, to be the container, to walk with them, to love them fiercely, and to hold their visions fiercely, and also to trust that they'll get there in their own way at their own pace. If I made all of my clients' results about me, I would quit this job. I would quit this whole dream of being a business owner, being a coach. It would just be too much. It would be too much for me. And all of these experiences, I have had very deep, deep, deep reactions to because there is like that wounded part of me that does make it about me. How can you not? How can you not blame yourself for a client being unhappy with their results? How can you not blame yourself for a client ghosting you and stopping 6 months in for a year-long container? Even just like saying some of this is very, very uncomfortable. It is so uncomfortable. So it just goes back to that trust, right? That trust and that asking for help that I talked about in the last 2 points that I was making. Trusting that I am the best coach I can possibly be right now. I am operating at the capacity that I have. I am loving my clients as fiercely as I can. My intentions are pure, no matter what other people's perceptions of my intentions are, right? And so I can't tell you how many tears I cried that year because it was really a huge invitation for me to kind of push that growth edge of releasing the need to please, to fix, to be the savior, which is important work as you grow, as you scale. Like the more people you are in front of, the more people you serve, people are so different. There's like, we have such a diverse population of people that we serve in the online space, especially. And you're not going to make everyone happy, even though you really want to. I really want to make everyone happy. I don't like when people don't like me. And your willingness, I tell my clients this all the time, like a version of this, right? Your willingness to have people not like you, to have people misunderstand you, to be annoying to people, to be the bad guy even though you're not, that's not your intention. Your willingness to be that to somebody else regardless of what your intention is going to correlate with the success that you have. Entrepreneurship is something that requires thick skin. And I don't mean thick skin in like heavy armor that keeps everybody out. I mean thick skin in like you heal quickly, right? Something pierces you, you heal quickly from it because you have support and you know how to ask for support. All right. Vulnerable moment, business lesson number 4. Letting go 39% of my income, my business income. So this was a big one. In the first year and a half of my business, 39% of my income came from contract coaching for other companies. 39%. And I've always been pretty open about that. I'm a big fan of multiple income streams, and those early contract opportunities were exactly what I needed at the time. It's what helped me feel really safe and secure going into my pregnancy and going on maternity leave and things like that. But once I had my son, I really did have to pause and ask, is this still aligned with the way I want to live and work? And the answer was no. When I looked at my numbers and realized I was walking away from 39% of my revenue, my nervous system freaked. It honestly still freaks a little bit. It was loud. All of those fears came rushing in. Like, can I really make this work without that contract work? Like, what if I'm not successful on my own? But it was a huge invitation to trust again. Like the theme of this entire episode is really just trusting. The level of self-trust that I've been invited to develop over the last few years of business has been astronomical. And it was an invitation for me to trust my skills, trust the vision that I've created, the my ability to make money in a way that feels 100% aligned with my values. That season of contract coaching massively tested my money mindset. And that season of releasing, well, really, yeah, it was the releasing of that contract coaching season that tested my money mindset. And I had to get scrappy and creative with the offers that I was putting energy into and the structure of my business model. And so my biggest takeaway here is you can't expand if you're holding on to something that's no longer meant for you, because it feels safer, right? Sometimes your brain seeks safety, and safety isn't always the same thing as the truth. And the scariest decisions are oftentimes the most liberating. Like, it was so scary for me to release some of the income streams that were bringing in so much revenue for me. And I also know that if I held onto them, I would develop resentment. I, you know, I noticed at the beginning of, those opportunities presented themselves to me fairly quickly, and they were exactly the ones that I needed in that season of life and business. But after a while, I started to realize I was feeling resentment whenever I was showing up for those things. I don't want to build a business where I'm resentful of certain aspects of my business. So again, just invitation here, if you are holding on to an opportunity because it's bringing in income, I get that need for safety, for security, for financial stability, because I have all of those too, right? There's a need for me to feel secure and safe and stable with my finances. And it's almost like you have to decide what you're willing to be okay with and not be okay with. I'm not okay with continuing to put energy into something that makes me feel resentment, that no longer feels in alignment, even though it's bringing in money. That's why I left my nursing job. So seeing how much income I had to make up for was scary. Yes. And it was a really, really huge invitation for me to get super creative, right? Now I'm creating offers in my business that fucking light me up. I love the structure of my business. I am so lit up about my membership. I'm so lit up about vibrant visibility. I'm so lit up about my one-on-one clients. And, I'm about to launch next month, in about a month from now, I'm about to launch a new course. And all of these things are so exciting for me. And not one of them feels like an obligation. I don't feel obligated to do these things. These are things that fill me up. Vulnerable moment number 5, failed launches. I want to talk here about the launches that flopped for me because I don't think people talk about this enough. I don't think people talk about failed launches and how often they experience failed launches. And that just kind of perpetuates a narrative that everything is perfect. Everything that you see online is perfect. And businesses are not perfect. We all have seasons where our launches fail, where we are not signing as many clients, where revenue is dropping, right? Like the economy is up and down. And so not talking about failed launches is actually a disservice to any new business owner that wants to do this because it's giving them a warped perception of what's actually realistic for being a business owner. So the first group coaching program I ever launched in year 1 completely flopped. I've talked about this before too. Actually, I think I've talked about all of these, right? The first retreat I ever launched last year, crickets. The second time I launched Vibrant Visibility earlier this year, even though the first round was a huge success, yeah, that one flopped too. And every single time I've had a launch flop, I've noticed 2 patterns. One, I didn't show up the way the launch needed me to. In the case of that second Vibrant Visibility launch, I hit the brakes after the first launch and never quite like got back in the game, right? I wasn't connecting with people consistently, and a lot of that was on me, right? There's some external factors too, I think, but I always love to really evaluate where my power is. Okay? And I did have the power to continue nurturing most of the leads that raised their hand for the first round but didn't actually convert. And after that first launch was successful, I was like, cool, I can hit the brakes. And then I just never hit the gas again until I decided I wanted to launch again. And then it felt like that momentum just wasn't there. So, first pattern, I didn't show up the way the launch needed me to, in the way that that program deserved. And the other pattern that I noticed, number 2, is my heart wasn't in it, right? If my heart isn't in it, like with my first group program, I created it as kind of a fix for my problem of not signing enough clients. And so I thought the program would be the solution. But the real issue was that I didn't fully believe in myself. And that showed. I was relying on the launch to erase the bigger problem of lack of belief in myself. And the biggest lesson for me here was every failed launch is an invitation to pivot, to look inward, to reflect, and also to look at the actual data, right? Like, look at the numbers. My first launch failed because I barely connected and reached out to anyone about it. I posted about it like 3 times on social media and then heard crickets and then got pissed when it didn't work out. Like, of course it didn't work. And sometimes it's not about the offer, it's about your energy. And then other times it's about the data. And so now I know to look at the whole picture, right? Energetically, strategically, and practically. My Vibrant Visibility launch, my second one, it wasn't the offer. The offer is solid. Like, I know that offer is solid. I know that that program is magical. It gets people results. I didn't put in the reps though to nurture that launch so that whenever it was time to do it, I had people ready to go. And that was a lesson learned that I'm taking with me into the next time I launch it, which is in the fall. But you have to look at all 3 things: energy, strategy, and practicality. Now, every single one of these failed launches, I had so many feelings about. I cried over all of these launches. I spent some time making it about me. Again, I was making it about me. If I didn't have a coach to kind of talk me off the ledge here, I would burn my whole business to the ground, guys, for how many launches have failed. So looking at the whole picture, like this is the biggest lesson for me, is it's every failed endeavor in your business is an invitation. It's an invitation to pivot, to look inward, to reflect, to get creative, to take ownership too, really to own your decisions, to own your decision making. Okay. Those were my 5 moments. These were some of the hardest chapters in my business journey, but they were also the ones that cracked me wide open and reshaped me. These moments forced me to get honest, forced me to slow down, to trust, to ask for help, to let go of what wasn't aligned, to show up even when it was messy and uncomfortable. So if you are in a vulnerable season of your own right now, I just want you to know that you're not doing it wrong. You're not doing it wrong. You're doing the brave thing, right? You're becoming the next version of yourself. You're becoming the version of yourself that your business needs. And that is going to look different in every season. If this episode spoke to your heart, I would love to know. Take a screenshot of this episode and tag me on socials. I'm at Nurse Coach Shawnee with an E. DM me your favorite takeaway. I love getting emails from you guys too. And if you're in a vulnerable season, a vulnerable moment in your own business and want support, I would be honored to walk alongside you. You can apply for one-on-one coaching in the show notes. I have a couple of spots opening for the summer. And just last reminder here that you are a strong human being, right? You've got this. Even whenever it's scary, you've got this, especially whenever it's scary. And I am here cheering you on. All right, I'll see you guys next week. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If this was helpful for you, subscribe to the show to make sure you're always in the loop when a new episode is out. And I would love to invite you to join me in the free Visibility and Tech Support for Coaches community, where we hang out and chat about all things visibility, tech, systems, and heart-centered business building. I regularly share tips and tutorials and go live every now and then, and it's just nice to be in a community with other like-minded coaches and healers. So you can join this free space at alignwellco.com/community, and I can't wait to see you there.